for the video today, I just wanted to let you guys know I am in the process of writing a book, a pageant book. It's got nothing to do with I've written Confessions of a Pageant Queen, 2 volumes of that, and that did very well. The first one in particular, which I released in 2020, got to the top 10 on Amazon. Both volumes did. That was telling the stories of the women inside, and so it was kind of an extension of my interview career. This one is going to be a beginner's guide to pageantry, so someone who is looking to go into pageantry for the first time. And so it's different. It's a bit like of a guide. It's more the coaching. And I wanted to let you guys know, a lot of you watching this, you would have already done pageants. So this book may not be really aimed at you, but I know what you're like. You go out and you evangelize about pageants and you try and rope everyone in the world into doing a pageant with you. And if you remember what it was like your first time, if you're anything like me, when I found out about pageants for the first time, and bear in mind, I'm from Sydney, Australia. We don't have the pageant culture here that you might do, like, let's say in Texas or Venezuela or Philippines or something like that. So I had no idea. And it's like, there's the stuff that there's the stuff you don't know, and then there's the stuff you don't know. It's like, I had no idea. It's like, why? Okay, so one of the things that I found really confusing was, why is there the local that leads to the state pageant, that leads to the national, that leads to the international? Some pageants do that, some don't. And then some people got appointed titles. I was like, oh, what was that about? And then people had at-large titles. I'm like, I'm confused. You're representing this country, but you don't live there. And there were all these, and then you'd have like 3 Australian girls competing at the same international pageant. I was like, hang on, but aren't you all from Australia? It's like, oh no, she's Miss Australia, she's Miss Oceania, she's Miss Asia Pacific, she's Miss South Pacific. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. And basically it's because very often in pageants we make up our own rules. So I'm a rules person in that I like to know the rules, and pageantry sometimes feel like it doesn't have any of that. But it was really, really overwhelming trying to understand, okay, there's all these different pageants. They all have a slight different take on it. And some are big in Japan, some are big in Latin America, some are big in Southeast Asia. And then it's like, okay, they all have different sections, and you got to learn to walk, and you got the gown, and you got the swimsuit. That made sense. But then what's fun fashion? Fun, what do you mean fun? And there's different walks for different sections, and then there's interview, which I understood. That was the one part that I could understand, although I couldn't understand how you could do an interview in 2 to 3 minutes. And so the point of this book is really to give complete beginners, 1 is to help reduce that overwhelm, and 2, it's to help give them a leg up so they don't feel they're going into a pageant completely blind. Or if you're a complete newbie and you're considering, you're not going into a pageant completely blind, because a lot of my coaching clients, actually, well, it's maybe 50-50, but a lot of my coaching clients have never done a pageant before. They've seen interviews that I've done, and they hear some of the rants and stuff, and the way that my brain works, and they go, okay, I want to talk to you because I feel like you know a lot about pageants and you can help get me up to speed. But I know that not everyone can afford coaching. Pageant coaching in particular is very expensive for in a lot of cases. And when I say expensive, it's not even just the price, the price that's put on it. It's like the actual value you get back from it. I see a lot of pageant coaches, and to be fair, this is not just in pageantry, this is a lot of coaching in general. People love to call themselves coaches, and they don't really have any justification for that. They don't have a coaching qualification. They might have a little bit of experience here, but are they any good at what they do? Who knows? And have they got any qualification in terms of being able to teach or coach? Probably not. And yet there's all these people who are saying they're pageant coaches, and I look at it and I go, oh my God, like, please. I don't think that, and I mentioned this before, I don't think when you're a complete newbie going to pageantry, the first move should necessarily be to take on a pageant coach. I really think you should first just enter a pageant, go and do it and see what it's like. And if you want a bit of a heads up, you want a bit of a lay of the land, so to speak, that's fine. But don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it, and don't commit more funds than you're already committing for really expensive pageant coach who doesn't really deliver? Like, do you really need all the fine points of how to interview or how to walk when you can barely walk in heels to begin with, or you can barely string a sentence together? No, just go and do it. And so I wanted this book to be that lay of the land and reduce the overwhelm, give you a chance, even in your first pageant, to feel like you did pretty well. And if you did pretty well, that you probably will enjoy it more. And then after you do your first pageant, you feel like pageantry is for you, then obviously then you might want to take on coaching, etc., etc. But the point is, like, if you're a newbie, then this book is for you. If you're not a newbie, you are undoubtedly going to be at some point encouraging your friends to get into a pageant, and they're going to have a lot of questions. And I'm sure you, being the person that you are, will be there to help answer questions, but sometimes we don't have time, or sometimes we want something to just say, here, read this, and this will get you up to speed. And this is what that's really supposed to be. It's like, hey, you're entering a pageant, read this book. Or if you're a pageant parent, this book will be for you. If you've never entered your child into a pageant before, this book will be for you. I will say it's aimed mainly at teens and up, not like the really little ones. We don't really have that here so much in Australia, so I'm not going to say that I have any knowledge in that area. So it's mainly aimed at like maybe pre-teens and then teens and up. But if you're a pageant parent and you're considering entering your child into a pageant, or your daughter wants her into a pageant, and you're like, I have no idea what she's getting into, this book will be for you. And I'm writing it right now, so I can't promise this, but I want it to be fairly short and to the point. I don't want this to be something you're going to have to dedicate 5 months to, and a reading plan, etc., etc. I want it to be, you can digest a chapter very quickly, maybe over lunch break, and definitely that you could consume the whole book probably easily within a week or two, because I don't want there to be any fluff in it. And to be honest, pageantry isn't that hard. There's just some things that you need to know, and I haven't really found much content, let's be honest, out there on the YouTubes, on the social media. Yes, I guess, as I said, there's pageant coaches, but outside of interview tips, and some of those are very dubious quality, outside of that, there's really not much out there in terms of, okay, what can I expect when I go into my pageant for the first time? Or what's the difference between the different types of pageants, or which pageants should I enter? And those things that I talked about before, like local, national, international. What does your registration fee cost? What does it not? What about prize packages? Understanding that, the legal side of it, NDAs, contracts, all that. And there's a lot that you need to know a little bit about just to make you aware before you enter your first pageant. And so I really wanted to, I'm leaving for Tennessee in the US, if you don't know, for Miss Volunteer America in a couple of weeks. And I want to try and get the first draft of the book done before then. And so if you're interested in maybe having an early read of it and giving me your feedback, we call them beta readers, beta or beta readers, then just let me know, send me an email, and I will endeavor to get you a draft copy. And in return for, I won't charge you for a draft copy. I'll send it to you like as a PDF. And in return for that, maybe you just give me some feedback as to, add additions, edits, deletes, etc. But I really, as I said, want this to be a resource for young women or women getting into pageants for the first time, and helping them understand what they're getting themselves into, not only to reduce the overwhelm and help them maybe do a bit better than they otherwise would, but frankly also to keep them safe. There are a lot of scandals going on in pageantry these days, a lot of title holders resigning. And look, regardless of whether you believe the system or you believe the title holder, it doesn't really matter, because a scandal is a scandal, and it can be a pretty, I don't know if I want to say dangerous, apologies for the wind again, I want to be outside, but dangerous may not be the right word, but there are certainly pitfalls in pageantry. And another thing I really dislike is there seems to be two camps in pageant in the world. The first camp is pageantry is great, it's going to save the world, it's the answer to everything. If you broke your leg, enter a pageant. If you are broke, enter a pageant. It's like, well, no, and I don't belong in that camp. The second camp is pageants are terrible, they're outdated, they're misogynist, and you should never do a pageant. I don't belong in that camp either. I'm in that sensible middle ground, which it's, there are certainly certain aspects of pageantry that are amazing, but there are certain things that you need to be aware of that exist. And I feel like a lot of people feel like they can't talk about that. And I've experienced this because when I bring up some of those topics, like honesty, like transparency, particularly with judging, there are a lot of people who want to just shout you down, jump down your throat. Thankfully, I'm sort of neutral enough and well known enough that most people don't do that. But even now, like I will get comments every now and then from people who like to basically tell me how it is and that I don't really know what I'm talking about. And I think, well, that's interesting. You've done maybe one pageant or you filmed one pageant. I've interviewed hundreds of people and had thousands of conversations over 10 years. And so it's not just me presenting my opinion. I've digested all those conversations, and that's why I like to feel like I can give you that middle ground. And so this book is designed the first part of it is, should you even enter a pageant? So just to be clear, it takes you through the whole journey. Should I enter a pageant? And then if you do, entering the pageant, and then once you've done that, the prep, then the actual competition, like how to make sure that you perform at your best or give yourself the best chance of performing well at the pageant, but then also the aftermath, that whole pageant hangover phase, and then evaluating how you did with an eye to maybe I want to do it again, or maybe I don't. But it's that whole, like, from the first thought of should I enter a pageant to entering the pageant, and then after you finished, it's that whole journey again for that first time at that beginner, maybe the second time. Like if you do a really small pageant, or the first one you did was a really small pageant and you did it when you were 13 and now you're 23 and you're entering your first proper pageant, then maybe this book is still for you. But I want to emphasize again, it's that whole journey, it's that middle ground, it's the keeping you safe, making you aware of some of the issues that we do have in the industry, some of those red flags. And again, I want it to be that sort of book that you can just give to someone who's thinking about entering a pageant. So whether you're a parent, and you read this, or whether you're thinking about entering a pageant and you pick this up yourself, or you're one of those people who convinces everyone to do pageants, you can just give this book to them and say, here, read this, and then come back to me and let's have a conversation. It's not to replace a pageant coach. It's just to bring people up to speed. And again, there's not that much information available out there about this sort of stuff. There's not really like a beginner's guide to pageantry that takes you from A to Z and everything in between. So it's not to replace a pageant coach, but I don't feel right in charging people for information that I feel should be widely available. And so this isn't to replace competent, high quality, high level coaches at all. In fact, if anything, this will supplement them quite well, complement them quite well, and will be a good addition, because then when people come to you, they will be more knowledgeable and they will know what question to ask. So that helps you, if anything, as a coach. But yeah, so I'm going to be, in front of the typewriter, in front of the computer. I don't know why I thought typewriter. I don't think I used the typewriter as a sort of a joke when I was a kid. I do miss the sound of it, that tick, 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 tick. But I'm going to be, as I said, trying to bust out the first draft of that before I head over to Jackson in Tennessee for Miss Volunteer America. If you're interested in getting an early draft to give me your feedback, just send me an email or send me a message. And I think this is going to be, I'm really focused on building up the pageant project now to be a hub of resources for pageants. And so, consolidating all the knowledge that I've gotten from all these hundreds of interviews and thousands of pageant conversations, I want a central place to put it, so it can be a really great place for people to go to, whether they're beginner or a bit more advanced. And I think this book is going to be a really important part of that as a first step. So that's it for today. Again, if you're interested in getting an early draft, let me know. Send me an email and I'll shoot that one over to you. But have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you next week.